Welcome back everybody, my name is Philip and here's the thing. Photoshop seems to be this untamable beast as you start editing, but as you continue you realize it doesn't actually have to be. However, there are a few things that I wish would be more commonly on the learning agenda, but they just simply aren't. But once I knew them, they helped me out a lot. So here are 19 tips, tricks and whatever the cool kids call hacks nowadays. Simply some easy techniques to raise your editing level to the Netherlands right away. I made sure to keep the variety quite wide, so even if you are a seasoned Photoshop user, I hope there's at least one that you haven't heard of before. But I guess let's find out, shall we? Now, the Orton Effect is a way to make your images look dreamy or fantasy-esque. It is used quite often in editing because it makes your images simply look soft, and it's super easy to do. In Photoshop, select your layer, right-click and convert into a smart object. Once done, head to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Select anything, you can change it in a bit. Change the blending mode of that layer either to Screen, Overlay, Multiply or Soft Light. Whatever works best for your image. I will select Screen here. You can now go ahead and reopen the blur option of your smart object and adjust the blur and opacity until your image looks dreamy enough for you. Congrats, you have an Orton effect. However, my highlights are now blown out, so this brings me to tip number 2. I don't want to see my blurred layer everywhere as it's kind of killing my damn lights. I could now go ahead and make a mask, but that's so much work. Instead, use Blend If. Double-click on your blurred layer and check out the 2 sliders. The thinking is that the layer I opened this dialog for is only visible depending on bright and dark areas, either of itself or the layer beneath. In my case, I don't want to show this layer where the layer below is bright, cause you know I want to take the effect out of my highlights. So I go to the slider that says Underlying Layer and drag the light slider to the left. Once I see a change, I hold the Option key, separate this little anchor and therefore soften the edge a bit. Boom! With one slider I can tell Photoshop to not show my Orton effect where the original layer is bright. As a reminder, if you do like the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe with the bell. It'll help out the channel owner, which is moi, a lot. Sometimes you need to really zoom in to do some edits, which is great, but while you are zoomed in, you don't get an idea of the image as a whole cause, well, you're zoomed in. So you need to zoom in and out to see if the edits that you're doing fit well into the image. In fact, you don't need to do that though. Instead, head to Window, Arrange and select New Window for whatever your document name is. Then head again to Window, Arrange and select either 2 up horizontal or 2 up vertical. I'll choose vertical. This will essentially show you the same document twice. You can now use one to zoom in and do the edits, like me pretending to darken a building here, and use the other window to see how the edits fit into the overall image, without having to zoom out. Once you're done, simply close one of the 2 windows. The spot healing brush tool is amazing, but sometimes it can have some trouble. Take this image. Say I want to remove some of these lines where the makeup broke under the eyes or so, and I use the spot healing brush tool. Then I get a little bit of a smudge that just doesn't look right. The reason is that Photoshop's spot healing brush tool will try to heal the dark lines I want removed, but also the light areas that are caught in the brush stroke. A simple trick though to only target the dark areas with the spot healing brush tool is to set the mode of the tool to lighten. If now I remove a line, Photoshop will only replace the dark pixels, but leave the bright ones alone. This way you keep more of a natural texture and reduce the chance for the smudge that we saw earlier. Here's another example. Say I want to clean up this beard line and remove some small hairs. Instead of using the spot healing brush tool with the normal mode, I can select the lighten mode and thus only replace and heal darker areas. You're working on an image and are adding final touches. Here for example I want to increase the brightness of my highlights. A super quick way of selecting the bright areas is to select your image layer and hit Command, Option, Shift and number 2. This will make a selection of the bright areas in your photo. You could then create a curve adjustment layer and that selection will be applied as a mask. Change what you need and you can see that the shadows are not being affected. Even more, with the layer mask selected, you could hit Command, Option and L to bring up the level adjustment. You can now fine-tune the bright areas a bit more. If you really want to remove the adjustment from all of your dark areas, simply drag either the left or the middle slider towards the right and see it happening. Remember how we used the keyboard combination Command, Option, Shift and number 2 to make the selection for the highlights? Well, if you do that and you do it again, it'll widen the selection and include more darker areas. Do it again and you select even more dark areas.
Keep in mind that you can also invert a selection, and suddenly you don't have the highlights selected, but the shadows. Use this selection method for quick edits that need to affect either brights or darks. Sometimes, either to do some proper editing or for idea gathering, you need to turn a normal scene into an autumn scene. To very quickly turn any scene into an autumn or fall scene in Photoshop, simply create a channel mixer adjustment, make sure your output is on the red channel, and then keep the red at 0, the greens at +200 and the blues at -100. Change the blend mode of the channel to lighten and set the opacity to your liking. You can then go ahead and add a vignette or increase saturation or so, whatever you prefer. You can also use the previously mentioned blend if functionality to hide the autumn effect in the dark areas, for example, to add some variety. You do you. Use this to quickly turn a photo into autumn style. A halo or white outline happens, sometimes during editing and sometimes during the photo session itself. Like this white line here around the Flatiron building in New York. Granted, I made this one up just so I'd be able to show you, but it still sucks quite hard. One could now try to use the clone stamp tool to remove the white line by selecting the sky and starting to paint, but whenever you go over the building, you will also add sky to the building. We don't want that. But Photoshop offers a super easy solution to remove such white outlines and halos. To remove white outlines in Photoshop, using the clone stamp tool, simply change the mode option on the top left to darken. Now if you select the sky, you can even go over the building, but only the bright pixels will be stamped over. Brilliant, right? Use this method to remove white outlines or halos around buildings or so, or even to edit skin as you need. When editing, it helps to have freedom of movement. For instance, being able to move your canvas around, but not just within the Photoshop window. To be able to move your canvas over the edge, simply head to Preferences, Tools, and check Overscroll. Now you can move your canvas freely, even over the window edge. Keyboard shortcuts will speed up your editing like you won't even believe. Like Alt F4. Here are the most common shortcuts that I use. Train now and save time later. B selects the brush. X changes foreground and background color. D resets your foreground and background color to black and white. Command-Control and J duplicates anything. Command-Control I inverts anything like a selection or a layer. Command-Control Option Shift and E creates a star visible, or in other words places everything that you can see onto a layer. Command-Control Option Shift and N creates a new layer. S selects the clone stamp tool, J selects the spot healing brush tool. Command-Control Option Shift and W opens the export dialog, very handy this one. Command-Control T opens the transform tool, where, well, you can transform things with. Command-Control and G groups things into a folder. And Command-Control and Option and G creates a clipping mask and makes it so that whatever was selected only affects the layer below it, indicated by this little arrow. As a bonus, if you want to speed up your editing with the brush, here are some nifty tips. With the brush selected, hold Option and Control, click and drag up or down to change the hardness, or left and right to change the size. In addition, you can hit the numbers on your keyboard to quickly change opacity of the brush, or shift in the number to change the flow value. Those shortcuts should help you to become more efficient, so practice them as often as you can. Sometimes you want to compare your edit to your original, or only look at a specific layer that you created somewhere along the editing way. Instead of having to disable all of these layers to see the one, towards the bottom, you can also just hold the Option key and click on the little eye icon next to the layer. All other layers will be hidden and you can only see that one. To restore, repeat that step once. Perfect to see your before and after. In many situations, like when using a brush, it would be helpful to rotate your canvas so you can do that more easily. To rotate your canvas in Photoshop, you can hit R to conjure the rotate tool, and now click and rotate as you like. Once you're done, simply hit Escape. On the Mac, this is even easier, as you can simply place 2 fingers on the trackpad and rotate your canvas that way. Perfect if you're painting a lot. Let's face it, the Photoshop interface can be a little grey. To spice it up, and because this apparently has to be part of any tip video, you can activate the hidden banana tool. To activate the banana tool, look to the left and select the 3 dots towards the bottom of your toolbar. Click on Edit Toolbar and now simply hold Shift while selecting Done. The 3 dots will turn into a banana. It doesn't really do anything, but adds a splash of color, so I guess why not? Say your images have become quite small, maybe through cropping, maybe because you did not carry your €4,000 camera around. How dare you? Whatever the reason, if you end up with an image that has a small dimension but you need to increase it, you can easily do that with Photoshop's Super Resolution feature. It is not super intuitive, but just bear with me and all will be well. Say you have a JPEG image on your desktop or in a folder, and that image needs to get greater dimensions cause you want to print it humongously. If you just drag the image into Photoshop, it'll open it, which is cool, but for a change, this is not what we want. We need this image to open in the Camera Raw editor during import into Photoshop. Open Photoshop and head to Preferences, File Handling, Camera Raw Preferences. There, go to File Handling again. Select the JPEG section and click on Automatically Open all supported JPEGs. Now you can drag and drop the small image into Photoshop and the Camera Raw filter will open up. Right-click on your image and select Enhance. As the windows tell you, this function doubles the resolution. Perfect for large prints, which is what we want. Hit the Enhance button. This will take a moment, but once it's done, you can already see the large version here towards the bottom. You can select the large version, hit Open, and it'll open in Photoshop for you to work with as you need. Keep in mind that Photoshop will create a DNG file next to your original image, so remember to clean up whenever you are done. Also remember to disable the JPEG function if you don't always want to open your JPEGs in Camera Raw. Double the resolution, double the print size. Oh yeah. Sometimes you just need to move it. Say we need to adjust the head tilt of our little friend here. This is super easy using the Puppet Warp tool. This works best if your subject is free from the background and is on a separate layer. Head to Edit and select Puppet Warp. I set 1 point on the neck area, if there is such a thing in this case, and some other anchor points around. If I now select the neck one and hold my Option key, I can rotate the point and therefore the head position of the subject. To use a more real-life example, here I have a subject. If I do the same thing and then decide on a point I want to rotate, I will be able to somewhat change the position of the hand in this example. How cool is that, right? Here's an easy way for creating a simple reflection in Photoshop. Not like that though. Select the Marquee tool and select the part that you want to mirror. Hit Command or Control and J to duplicate your selection onto a new layer, and then Command or Control and T to transform. Right-click, select Flip vertically and drag your mirror down to the point that feels right. We could leave it like that, but we shouldn't, as it's super obvious that this is not even remotely real. So, create a curve adjustment layer above your mirror and create a clipping mask. Now, this curve will only affect your mirror image. Reduce your overall brightness and also set the black point a little lower. Go to the blue curve and add some blue, reduce the red a little to your liking. Better. You can also add a hue saturation layer the same way and reduce the saturation a little bit. Now, select your mirror layer and head to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. Change the angle to 90 degrees and add a little, maybe 20 or so, and hit OK. Depends on your image, of course. Cool, this gives a little bit of a water feeling, as it's now not a pure mirror anymore. Lastly, create a curve adjustment layer and drag it down a good bit. Hit Command or Control and I to invert the layer mask and hide the curve adjustment. Hit G for the gradient tool, select the reflected gradient, and add the darkness back in where the edge of the water would be. Boom, a quick reflection. This is an easy version. Keep in mind one could add ripples and all, but for Instagram and things like this is quick, it's easy, it's simple, and it looks pretty. Here's a tip for when you're working with color or when you think you're done with an image. Right now I have this normal document open. If I hit the F key, I can essentially go full screen with that image within Photoshop. And if I hit F again, everything but the image is gone. You can move your cursor to the edge to get your tools back, of course. So what's that? The way I use this, in the usual window, the one we started with, I select the default background color. I think it's great to do your edits in like the heavy stuff. Once I move to color, I hit F and use a dark gray background. This may be personal, but it helps me to see if colors are too strong somewhere. Once I think I am done, I hit F again and see the image on a black background. I then step away from the screen, and this is important, for at least 5 minutes and come back. Our eyes get used to color casts and saturation when you edit, so stepping away and coming back will refresh your own view onto the image that you created. And the black background really helps me spotting when I come back. You may want to use these backgrounds differently, but use them like they are free pizza after a night out. Use them. Curves can be intimidating at first, but did you know you can do some pretty cool stuff with them? For one, you don't even need to use the curve itself. You can just use this little hand symbol right here. Click it and move your mouse over an area, say a bright area. You can now just drag up and the curve will also go up. Now you can move to a dark area and drag it down there. You will see that Photoshop will automatically place points on the curves, so you can just select darks and brights and adjust what you like. You can use the same button when adjusting separate RGB color curves too. Add some more reds in the highlights and then take them out from the shadows. Easy, right? Did you know you can also see your black point and white point within curves? For the black point, simply hold the Option key and click on the dark slider and here. What appears now black in your image is literally black, as in there's no information in the image. You can adjust your black point as needed, and the same for the white point. Hold Option and select the white end of the slider to see which areas are completely white. In addition, curves can try to autocorrect your images too. See this order button? Hit it. Photoshop will try to balance the image in terms of colors and brightness, and if you didn't like the option, you can always click on the little Options button here and head to Auto Options. Here you can switch between the different styles of autocorrection. I personally find dark and light colors to be the best. Even with a really red color cast, it manages to correct the image quite well. And in the end, you can always jump in and make further adjustments as needed. If you have a horizon or a building, it's easy to straighten up your images. Hit C on your keyboard to bring up the crop tool. Select Straighten on the top and simply drag a line on something that should be straight. Photoshop does the rest.
And there we go. These were 18 tips, tricks and hacks, if that's what it's called, when it comes to your editing in Photoshop. If you have other cool tips and tricks that you think should have been in this video, well, throw them in the comments. Let's really get a knowledge base going here. I'd love to find one that I didn't know before. Now, I hope you did like the video. If you did like the video, do not forget to hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, as it's going to help out the channel owner, which is a lot. Other than that, have a beautiful week and I shall see you next time. Have a good one.